Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Jarrell Miller has broken his silence in regards to a failed drug test, and he says he believes he knows what he ingested and it's currently being tested, but for legal reasons he can't say a lot. So Miller appeared on YouTube channel Fight Network. It was an exclusive interview, and I have to say, it was actually incredibly hard-hitting, not some of the normal softly sort of questions you may expect when a boxer goes onto a channel. This guy from Fight Network actually put it on Jarrell Miller several times in the interview, asked the questions that you would want to actually know. We want the information from, what's gone on here. And he put the right questions to Miller, quizzed him on his drug history, and basically, made Miller try to explain himself. So I have that in the description box, the link to that interview. But in this video, I'll go through some of the statements, and I'm going to, under fair use, play some very, very brief clips. Some of the highlights of the interview, but I do encourage you, because the interview was 15 minutes long, do check it out, because it is actually a really, really good interview. Do recommend it. But of this failed test, Miller has not denied it. He has effectively said there was a failed test, but he believes he knows how this has happened, that there's a substance. He believes he's ingested something, because the substance in question is GW 1516, or that is the performance enhancing substance that was in his system. But Miller knows, or thinks he knows, how that has come to be in his system. Although he wouldn't go into any detail at all, citing legal reasons. And pretty much at any point in the interview, as soon as things got a little bit tricky, Miller would sort of fall back onto legal reasons. And I guess with a pending case with the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which had licensed him for the Jerry Forrest fight, which was to be on July 9th, he's probably wise not to go into too much detail. But I would note, ahead of going any further in this video, Miller has still not reactivated his Instagram account. So this interview on Fight Network is the first thing we've had. So Miller's chosen not to basically put across what could have been a very sanitized type of statement, very vanilla on his Instagram. Instead, having an almost at sometimes adversarial type of conversation. Ultimately, Miller was the one who got annoyed at the end of this interview and ended it early, hung up on the guy, said, yeah, thanks, because the guy was questioning him on his track record and about a 2014 failed test, because it's not the first time this one. Obviously, there was the Joshua stuff from 2019, but also a failed test back in 2014 when he was obviously back in kickboxing, etc. But Miller, he's really annoyed about what's gone on. Here's a little clip.
Say nobody can be more outraged than me. You know what I mean? I'm the one that lost millions of dollars. I'm the one that have his career on the line.
But Miller himself is adamant that the facts will come out here. And he sort of referenced that VADA was aware of certain things, that he'd have different supplements or substances that he's been having during his training, etc., that is on the list that goes to VADA, that VADA is aware of, etc. They get tested to get an all clear back to the fighter, etc. He says he spent his own money to have that sort of process play out, that the facts will come out and that people don't really understand what's going on. But there was definitely a flavor here, because he kept trying to say, look, I haven't taken a steroid, nothing's been ejected, and didn't stick a needle in the ass, etc. But he was dancing on the head of a pin there, because no one is saying he took a steroid this time. GW 1516 is not a steroid. No one said it was, but it is banned. It's a performance enhancing substance. It aids fat burning and also endurance. And this was one of the substances from a year ago from the Anthony Joshua stuff that Miller failed for. And at the time, he never accounted for. He was unable to come up with an adequate response to how that got us in his system back then, and it's in his system now. But how did it get in the system now? Well, he won't quite tell us. He believes he's ingested something, but he won't go into the full details because of a pending investigation. But he denies, and this is where I'll get to a short clip, that he has willingly ever taken anything that he shouldn't.
No, I've never, ever willingly take a steroid for performance enhancement purposes. No. Did I take something for healing properties, for injury? Yes, I've had.
on the basis that Jarrell Miller has failed across multiple years, different tests, I think people will find it hard to believe his sort of story. Remembering, 2014, 2019 and 2020. And obviously Eddie Hearn had come out, his former promoter, and said he thinks that Miller has a psychological issue, that he just has to have substances in his system for a fight, that he needs it, and for whatever reason he's got a psychological problem around that. Miller in the interview denied that, and he denied that he's willingly taken substances, steroids, and he kept trying to differentiate between what people may see as the heavier side of the things with steroids as opposed to something that could be found in a supplement of some sort. He was trying to differentiate, and obviously because he wants it to be explainable, to be on the lesser end of, the bad side of performance-enhancing substances. Also, the question about should he actually be banned for life? The interviewer put it to him. He said, a lot of people are outraged about what's happened. What do you make of it? Here was his response.
Absolutely not. I should not be banned. I'm prepared to accept my suspension, and I'm willing to do my monthly testing duration for my suspension. But to be banned for life? No, you're out of your mind.
And a lot of boxing fans and fight fans in general are a bit raw on this situation at the moment. Clearly, Miller is open to the fact that he's probably going to do some sort of time, that there will be some suspension of some sort. So whether he actually gets a life ban, probably, we'll have to see, but probably not. You'd have to imagine that some of the sanctioning bodies or the commission, the Nevada Commission, it sets a precedent. It could be challenged. It could be something that just might be too hard to actually enforce or make, come into fruition. But Miller, he could potentially fight whatever gets handed down to him. But seemingly, based on that interview, he knows he failed a test. He knows something was in a substance. He's trying to explain it. He says the facts of the matter will come out, but also seemingly he's willing and able to take some sort of suspension that he probably, from what he was saying, knows is coming down the pipe. Obviously, he was licensed by Nevada for this Jerry Forrest fight, so he will come under their purview. He will have to explain to them what's happened. And then obviously the sanctioning bodies as well, they will probably come in behind with whatever they end up doing as well. Similar to a year ago, because remember, the New York Commission couldn't sanction him at that time because he didn't have a license. That's why the WBA came out and dropped him from his rankings for 6 months. Obviously, the WBO did the same. They didn't put a time limit on it. And one thing that's been interesting is Miller hasn't really been on any testing in the past year or so. So who knows what he's been up to. Clearly, it doesn't look good for him that he's failed another test, and people have zero faith in what he's saying. Overall, that interview, Miller was trying to put a positive spin on certain things, that effectively saying that fans don't understand, that there's a whole bunch of things that are going on that people aren't aware of. But he also sort of referenced miscommunication between VADA and fighters. But the thing is, it's a strict liability system. As the interviewer pointed out, the Fight Network interviewer, Miller is responsible for anything and everything that is in his system. And despite his protestations that, he's innocent and there's nothing to see here because he hasn't tried to deliberately take something, something's been found in his system. And people are not going to be willing to give him the benefit of the doubt here. But overall, Miller, his first sort of statements here, breaking his silence, says that he will be able to explain himself in the due course of time, but it doesn't look good, does it? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.